Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And it is indeed that time again, Jumpin' In time. That is 9 o'clock on a Saturday night here on Manx Radio. Where else? I'm H.
And I'm Chris. Yes, welcome along to this week's Jumpin' In. And as promised, it's curtain up for our Showtime special with a series of spectacular renditions from the Broadway musicals and reviews that were the proving ground for what became the Great American Songbook and responsible for so many standards still inspiring jazz musicians today. So, aside from the excitement of your drink on a stick at the interval, what's been exercising your jazz hands this week, H?
Well, we are indeed heading to Broadway with a bit of rhythm, and I'm also going to be hearing a bit of Showtime deconstructionism.
And from me, well, an insomnia, quick step, a mystery arrival, a less than honest Tyler, a colourful way to go to pot. And take your seats, please, as this has a nice ring to it. Here's the Patchwork Orchestra. Frank Lesser's If I Were a Belle, if you hadn't already guessed it, taken from the hit Broadway musical Guys and Dolls, which opened back in 1950 and ran for 1,200 performances, winning the Tony Award for the Best Musical. Was followed in 1955 by the successful film with Brando, Sinatra, Simmons and Vivian Blaine. Got 4 Oscar nominations, won 2 Golden Globes, and was given a refreshing modern arrangement under lockdown conditions back in April, when the Patchwork Orchestra provided just how much fun 20 people can have whilst at home alone in their pyjamas. Great stuff.
What a thought. What a thought. In your Jim Jams. Have I got any Jim Jams left? I don't know. I just go on the T-shirt these days. Now, I promised you some deconstructionism and two masters, I have to say, on the show today, giving some deconstructing, in other words, some Showtime classics. And here's a gentleman who's made a speciality out of this, and as far as I'm aware, still is. A mere 80 years young when he recorded this one live at the Village Vanguard, the outstanding Marshall Salal. Marvellous stuff. Live at the Village Vanguard, Marshall Salal. He's 93. I don't know. I was trying to see whether he's still actually playing. He was a mere 80 when he recorded that. We saw him maybe a year or two, around about that period.
Just after that,
afterwards,
2010, was it, Bath?
Yeah. 2010, was it? Okay, yeah. So he would have then been 83, 84 when we saw him. And it was incredible in as much as he played in a trio setting with a bass player and one of the Mouton brothers, I think, on drums. And if you hadn't seen the gentleman, even though he looked pretty sprightly, but if you closed your eyes and just listened, you'd have thought it was a young Turk in his early 20s on the piano, not a gentleman in his 80s. It was so fresh, so modern, so again, he's...
And in fact, the energy behind it, you would have, it was exhausting to listen to and never mind to take his age into account.
Whether he's still playing now or has decided to rest on his laurels, quite rightly so, he's 93, I don't know, but bless him, he's still going. And wow, what a fantastic pianist he was. And so little heard in so many ways, Marshall Salal. Terrific stuff.
Perhaps taking some time out to hone his skateboarding skills. Well, remembered by forever for those of us of a certain age, and as Andre Preview, as Eric Morecambe famously introduced him, Andre Previn, the Berlin-born musician, composer and conductor who died last year aged 89, left Germany with his family, fleeing from the Nazis and becoming an American citizen back in 1943 while still in his teens. Living in LA, he began composing film scores, went on to win 4 Oscars, took 11 years at the helm of the LSO, but there was a time when he was one of drummer Shelly Mann's men, and along with bassist Leroy Vinnegar, had some of the most successful jazz albums of their time, including their tribute to My Fair Lady. Here's one for Night Owls, I Could Have Danced All Night.
Hello, I'm Julia Hülsmann. You're listening to Jumping In with Chris and H.
How about that?
Okay.
Terrific stuff, recorded a mere 31 years ago. God, where does the time go? Paul Motion, from his album On Broadway Volume 2. I think he did about 6 in the end, from memory. Certainly 5, possibly 6. I really can't recall now exactly. All excellent, although Volume 2 all stands out in my mind, possibly because it was the first I heard. And what a lineup. I mean, Paul Motion on drums, Joe Lovano tenor, Bill Frisell electric guitar, Charlie Hayden at the bass. And of course, I Got Rhythm, the Gershwin classic. God knows how many times the boppers used those chord changes to come up with different songs. Charlie Parker famously, of course, and from Girl Crazy. And I should have said beforehand, of course, Marshall Salal was playing I Can't Give You Anything But Love. And that was, I think, from Blackbird Review from the 1920s.
And before that last track, we were given an energetic Latin treatment of
Shelley.
I Should Have Danced All Night from Frederick Lowe and Alan J. Lerner's My Fair Lady. When Shelley, Andre and Leroy went into the studio to do a session of show tunes, it was suggested to them by their producer, Lester Koenig, maybe they should feature a tune or two from the current, at that time, Broadway smash, My Fair Lady. And Mann and Previn were both so impressed with the show that they arranged, played and recorded an entire album of tunes in one session. And so successful was the trio, they released, how many would you like to put a punt on that the albums they put out?
How many albums did they sell?
Of the trio. No, not sell. How many different albums did they put out?
Oh, lordy. 2 or 3?
47.
47. Close.
47 trio albums, including several of show tunes, TV themes, and but that one's still perhaps one of the best. Now, I recently featured the quartet Astor, made up of Andrei Ceccarilli, saxophonist Sylvain Boeuf, bassist Thomas Bramery, and pianist Antonio Faro. But the group had been playing together for some 20-plus years, albeit with a different basis. They started out with a tribute to Bernstein's brilliant West Side Story. They must have known something's coming.
Not need it, Danny. You sit on the wall, stand by that. Now, Team 17. Play growing up in that atmosphere. An independent group of blues kinship, kick band, right?
It's kind of hard to
Io ti voglio bene. Jack London's classic.
Oh, so they turn it out.
In a manner that suggests it challenged him to do something.
The marchers made it. Louis XVI design.
Going into the Southwest. Oh, come on, let me hear.
Capturing the feel and ambience of the city, that was Something's Coming from the 1997 recording of the same name from drummer Andrei Ciccarelli and his quartet. Worth seeking that one out.
Absolutely it is. And I don't know, we need to seek this one out. It's going back a bit in time. Another, or the second of my deconstructionalists. Don't get too scared if I mention the word Cecil Taylor, very free for his large part in his latter years, but earlier on was more accessible. Still free, but accessible, I would say. Here's his take on Love for Sale. classic stuff. 1959, that, I think it was. Amazing how fresh it must have sounded then. Love for Sale. Cecil Taylor with his trio. So we got Will Nudlinger on bass, Dennis Charles on the drums. I think Ted Kirsten also finishes on that album on the trumpet as well. And it still sounds fresh and modern now. What a take.
As our guest a couple of weeks ago, John Beasley, said, some people were just actually composing with their heads way into the future. Hanging around the same sort of period, actually, opening on Broadway on September the 22nd, 1964, and doing a record-breaking 3,242 performances in its first run. Can you guess?
Fiddler on the Roof.
Hey, Jerry Bock and Sheldon Harnick's Fiddler on the Roof. It was something of a phenomenon, and so original was the concept, and so strong were its melodies, that within a month of its opening, Cannonball Adderley was inspired to take a sextet into the studio and record his tribute. Here's the opener. Still sounding pretty good today. Cannonball Adderley Sextet with Fiddler on the Roof. And how could this oft overlooked album be anything other than great, with what a stellar lineup? Cannonball on alto, Little Brother Nat on trumpet, Charles Lloyd on tenor and flute, Joe Zawinul on the piano, Sam Jones on the bass and Louis Hayes on the drums.
Terrific stuff indeed, yeah, wonderful. And Cannibal Adderley, can you go wrong? No, not a bad album he brought out, I don't really think, realistically. Wynton Marsalis, still going strong, and yeah, one of his earlier ones, terrific. He did several albums of standards. Marsalis Standard Time, Volume 1, all cracking stuff. How about this? The Song Is You. Still sounding fresh as a daisy. The Song Is You by Jerome Kern from Music in the Air in 1932, as interpreted by Wynton Marsalis on his Standard Time Volume 1 album. Wynton on trumpet, Marcus Roberts on piano, Robert Leslie Hurst III on bass, and still going strong, Jeff Tain Watts at the drums.
Well, as the applause dies down for the final number, it just leaves time for the curtain call. We caught the colourful Dutch trumpeter Eric Floymans in concert at Bath Festival, actually the same time as we saw Marshall Solal back in 2010.
Gosh, yes.
And I have to admit, it started me on a path of discovery of his music with a great many musicians along the way, including Nguyen Le and John Taylor. But this trio, Fugamundi, caught live at Yoshi's Jazz Club in 2009. Eric on trumpet, Harman Franje on piano, Anton Goldsmith on guitar, with a song written by Harold Arlen for the 1939 film Wizard of Oz, which went on to be the theme tune for Judy Garland and a standard everywhere. We'll leave you with Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
See you next week.
Bye for now.